You were connected. Wait, 1977. This is 1977. 1977. 1977. Two participants. What the fuck?
Hey.
Oh my gosh, man. I was
get the audio.
I was trying to find the waiting room. I gotta get my Zoom game tight.
Test.
You're sitting there waiting.
I can't hear ya. I can see ya.
Yeti microphone.
Could be.
I am on Yeti.
Oh.
Oh yeah, the Yeti.
That Yeti.
The Yeti needs to turn on.
It was a me problem, and it's fixed.
Yes. And sorry about the time, man. I'm looking at the thing, 3 p.m., but here we are. You're on fire anyway.
I am. I'm ready to rock, dude.
Oh my gosh, our emails were on point. So I think we're just gonna kill this thing.
Yeah, buddy.
Okay, here we go. Sean McCormick, the optimal performance man of the planet. I am so happy you could join us, and we got all kinds of things to talk about because we've been burning up the email exchanges.
Yeah. I'm so happy to be here. After, I just released, at the day that we're recording this, I just released my episode with you. And then the post-production process, it is so packed with so much great information. People are going to get so much from it. Yeah. Thank you for having me on your podcast. This is rad.
Well, let's hear about the Optimal Performance podcast so we can plug my show. The listeners can go over there and listen to that. But then as you scroll through the guests and the content, it's pretty optimal, man. You're pretty out there. I got to say, you're really pushing the edges in so many different directions. And we're going to get into your life coaching and the things that you do to help others. But give us a rundown of what it's like hosting that podcast and some of the highlights of favorite guests and the journey that's been for you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and any opportunity to plug the podcast is comes with great gratitude. I really I follow breadcrumbs. The stuff that is interesting to me is the stuff that I go seek out. And in podcast land, sometimes you're pitched guests from book publishers. Sometimes you are pitched guests from PR companies. So sometimes I have people coming in to me that cellular health or, the communication of cells between each other, that falls in my bucket. I'm fascinated by that. And so I roll with it. And other things, that I'm just really fascinated by. So looking over the past number of episodes, I did an episode on running with the host of another podcast called Brody Sharp. It's called Run Smarter. Before that, I did a 2-part episode with a fellow named Steve Rio, who is a fascinating guy. We talk about his platform called Nature of Work, which talks about how to really structure your working from home environment, bookending the days, starting it the same way, ending it the same way. That was first half of the episode. The second half of the episode was dedicated completely to the most powerful hallucinogen on the planet, which is 5-MeO DMT, why we should care about it, why we should be interested in it. So, I've had Rob Wolf on the podcast. I've had, Sean Baker from, the carnivore movement. I had a episode about weighted blankets. Have you ever tried a weighted blanket, Brad?
I've just generally, I think I gave my daughter one as a gift, and gave it a test run and read some of the benefits about. I guess there's material inside that's magnetic or something to do with helping your cellular flow or something.
This is specifically a quilted blanket that has glass microbeads in
Hmm.
it that creates a weight which acts like deep pressure touch to relax you quickly. And I was super interested in it. I had read about it a little bit, and then I did an episode with Elizabeth Grosjean, who is the founder of a company called Baloo, and it is incredible. I need to buy like 5 more of them because everybody in my family loves them so much. So I'm constantly looking for ways to get the most from the least. So if that's how you structure your workday at home, cool. If that's responsible use of psychedelics to reach a greater state of consciousness, then I'm into it. Breath work, sleep health. You mentioned the X3 bar on your episode, your appearance on the Optimal Performance podcast, and I've been using that for 2 years, and it's basically all I do now because it gives you the biggest effect for the time. 10-minute exercise, like totally works you out. And so all of these different ways of thought, devices, personal performance frameworks, ways of thinking about the self. I'm interested in all of it, and we're at such an exciting time in the world where we know so much. Like we can get the data done to support these ideas of like really wholesome, like natural biohacking. And so that's really what I focus on. And it is amazing because I've been able to speak to people that I've admired for a long, long time. Dude, it's awesome. I love being a podcaster.
Yeah, that's the greatest joy, is the opportunity to connect with these people. And I tell my listeners, one of my favorite shows was with Dr. John Gray, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. I think you had him on, and we discussed. I listened to your show, and he gave like entirely different insights and fresh stuff that he never mentioned on three of my. I had interviews with him 3 times, and the guy is just like the greatest bundle of energy force on the planet. But I remember our very first show. And we're in the Zoom scene, so we weren't face to face, which is even more rich of an experience. But at least we were looking at each other on the screen. And at one point during the interview, he kind of cracked a little bit. He broke down, which is so rare for him, right? He's a
Mm.
motor mouth, but he was talking about losing his partner of 33 years, Bonnie, who's featured in all the books, and was right alongside him through this wonderful journey of helping people optimize their relationships. And it was a really touching moment for me because here's this guy spewing his story. He's got so much energy and excitement, and then he's dealing with this loss, and it was, I think, a year or more after the loss, and he was saying like, hey man, ask me another question, I got to keep going, I'm trying to move past it. And
Mm.
I was compelled the very next day to propose to my girl Mia Moore, because I'm like, he's describing ideal partner here during our show, and I'm like, she's sitting right here, what am I waiting for? Life is so
Oh,
short. And so I just kind of had this burst of energy and inspiration thanks to John Gray. And I know
awesome.
you've probably had so many of those on so many different levels with your guests, but yeah, it's pretty fantastic. And I hope the listeners are right alongside. We're doing our best. We're working hard to share that information, like you say.
Yeah, well, and what you're speaking of too is a level of humanity that we are missing. We're missing campfire conversations and afternoon coffees that last 4 hours. That level of
Mm.
connection we just don't have. And my favorite podcasts are the ones that are open and honest and vulnerable, and in that way you feel like you're in on the conversation. How many episodes of podcasts do I listen to where I just feel like I'm in the room with those people? That if they're stumbling to think of this one thing, you always remember the thing that they forget. Like, who was that one actress from that one show? It's like, oh no, I know. But yeah, I mean, the transformation can happen in such a short period of time. And when you have an opportunity to get downloads from truly inspirational, super wise people who have been there before and have experimented and have something really important to share. For us to be able to host podcasts where just a little nugget of wisdom can, like in your case, strive, elicit some action that changes your trajectory of your life. If it's relationship wise, or it's a new way of eating, or a new way of exercising, or something that will help you really take care of your sleep. Like, just that little spark can totally change lives. And I take it really seriously. And it's just as well as I do, it's a lot of heavy lifting, man. I mean, to be able to come into to bring it every single episode, to ask great questions, to have great conversations. But it's when I get feedback from listeners that are like, hey, this was amazing, it's just like, oh, okay, I can keep going. You feel the same way?
Oh, sure. Yeah, you got to bring it every episode. It reminds me of a comment Seth Godin made in one of his newsletters. He's the marketing guru and
Yeah.
performance optimization guy. And he says, we use this word authentic all the time. Like, I want to be the most authentic and honest podcaster I can. He goes, we're not really authentic because we're performing and
Hmm.
we're interacting with the public. And in almost every interaction you go through throughout the day, it's not truly authentic, because if you had a crappy morning before we got on the air to record this podcast, I'm not seeing any of it, nor are the listeners or the viewers on YouTube, because you're having to bring it. And so
Hmm.
he kind of like repositioned the concept to be sort of honest, vulnerable, all those other things. But we do know that we're putting on a show and we're trying to maximize the impact for the listener. And that
Interesting.
means that we're not going to hear about Sean's interaction with the grocery store where someone cut in front of him and he was all frustrated and ran 7 minutes late, because we don't care. It doesn't help us. So I like that distinction, and I think about that a lot, because sometimes you hear people kind of, I guess, overdo it in a way, and you can get too drawn into drama rather than hey, I have a limited attention and time. What are you going to give me that's of the best value?
Yeah, yeah, that's an excellent way to think about it. You're right. It is a performance, and it's coming from an act of service, which inherently suggests that you're giving of yourself. That you're, even if you're tired, even if you're cranky, even if you've had a bad day leading up to this, the fact that you're stepping up to the plate and giving of yourself, that gives, for me, just gives me the juice. And I really try to live as transparently as possible. And I've had, it's this year, some of the episodes that I've done, on topics that are very controversial, have been challenging for some of the people closest to me, friends and family that don't like some of the stuff that I'm talking about. And yet
Right.
I feel compelled to share it, because it is, because conversation is what moves the needle. Like, this suppression of ideas just doesn't, this cancel culture stuff just doesn't help anybody, because we have to talk our way through it. We have to be able to verbalize, to disagree, and to continue moving forward. And so for me, that level of truth, maybe not authenticity, but that level of truth, I try to bring into every single interaction I have.
Yeah, well said. And I think this is what's great about being alive today. One of the first examples that comes to my mind is the great decathlete Bruce Jenner, who was my hero when I was a kid, and now she's Caitlyn Jenner. And to think, like, it's just so mind blowing that this picture of masculinity and athletic excellence lived his whole life in that pain and suffering and struggle, and then had the courage to come out and do what she did in the public forum, and talk to Oprah, or whoever the groundbreaking interviews were, and to think about how many people that whole story has touched in such an
Mm.
amazing way. Counting me, who was inspired by his ability to pole vault, high jump, throw the discus, and be on the Wheaties box. But whatever, 50 years ago, or I mean, how long ago was it that he won? Almost 50 years ago. Um, that all we saw was that tiny glimpse, that tip of the iceberg of the guy who was an amazing athlete. And so especially with podcasts, what you're describing is like we're getting past the 6-minute book interview on Good Morning America where
Right.
Brad Kearns comes on and says, yeah, you eat less food and you make really good choices and it's really healthy and you also have to exercise. Okay, we'll be right back after the commercial.
Yeah.
And so no, you and I got to further talking about our new book and all the other great shows. I was wanting to ask you, like, there's so much content out there where the
Mhm.
ball is moving so quickly. We're exchanging information so quickly. We're bombarded every single day with the opportunity to optimize and further optimize after we optimize. And I wonder if you ever have an experience of kind of burnout or frustration that we're overloaded in these ideas.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Oh yeah. That's a great question. Yeah. I mean, when, for your listeners who I assume are proactive, health focused, and want to do a good job in their life. They want to live a high quality of life and give it their best. Um, there are lots of opportunities to become inundated with options of supplements, options of workout, options of nutrition, um, and it can definitely become overwhelming. And especially, I mean, we're talking about like the West Coast of the United States of America is probably the epitome of the go sort of like go getter lifestyle. And you know, that's when I begin to think about like purpose and mission, because is it for a show? Is it for attention? Is it for achievement? That's great. But how far? What is it? What goes beyond that? Right? When you have either put a lot of pressure on yourself, or you have a lot of pressure on you by teammates or coaches or coworkers or bosses to perform at a high level, it's really important to like anchor it to your why. Like, what is this all for? Why are you working so damn hard, man? Like, why don't you slow down and chill out? And it kind of gets, this is an issue that I talk about a lot with my coaching clients, which is, I had one client who, um, he was really high up at Amazon. I'm in Seattle, so I have lots of Amazon and Microsoft employees, and he was doing so many things well professionally. He was really highly successful, and at the same time, like his health was failing a bit, and he was pre-diabetic and on antidepressants, and estranged from his wife, and wasn't really talking to his kids, and he was sort of anchoring his this narrative that he built in his mind that this is all for them. Like, why are they so mad at me? Like,
Mm.
I'm working hard so I can provide them, with the lives that they want. And it takes a lot of courage to slow down and really think about if that's true. Is it true? Is this really all for them? And is there a point of diminishing returns at which you're pushing so hard that it's affecting your spiritual growth? It's affecting your health and your relationships. Your money is good. Your money's good. Your professional trajectory is good. But if it's all these other things are getting in the way, and this guy, tons of resources, tons of options, corporate coaches, but um, when he's really slowed down and took an assessment of why he was doing what he was doing, what this was really for, then it allowed him to sort of reassess the plan that he had been hammering on for 20 years. And the same thing goes for so many of us, is you have to really ask yourself hard questions, or hire a coach that will help you ask yourself those questions so that you can understand yourself in a deeper level and make the positive adjustments. Maybe it's just taking more vacation. Maybe it's dialing in your sleep. Maybe it's writing that book that you told yourself that you were going to write 10 years ago and you haven't even started. So you got to pump the brakes. We're super dopamine, acetylcholine. So talk about neurotransmitters. Dopamine, acetylcholine. A lot of us are dominant in those two traits, and GABA and serotonin, a lot of us are deficient in for like type A go-getter. And it's essential for us to have that sort of wellness and anchor to like a mission that we create for ourselves.
Yeah, wow, there's a lot there.
Yeah.
Very well said. And I'm reminded of a quote that Dave Rossi shared, I think on our interview. Maybe it was off camera since he talks so much, but um, he said, basically everything we're doing is in pursuit of some kind of hormonal experience. And so we're very familiar with the dopamine triggers. Dr. Robert Lustig wrote that great book, The Hacking of the American Mind. And I
Mm,
think he listed 10 different ones that are just overwhelmed society and turned us into dopamine addicts at the expense of and flooding the pathways such that we're not, adapted to, do these serotonin promoting activities, oxytocin, long-term satisfaction of a richly lived life instead of just going for the instant trigger. Sugar is his main area of focus in life, but he also goes down the list of like excessive exercise, pursuing, competitive success like at Amazon and seeing your stock go up, and engaging with the 1-2 punch of video games and porn for the young American male satisfies their main dopamine drives, that their biological drives, to the great detriment of their journey through real life, because they have all their needs met in the comfort of their bedroom. And it
yeah.
was a pretty heavy reflection to think that everything we're doing has some form of drive and motivation, and we have a great ability now, for the first time in history, to be constantly entertained by a mobile device or by a digital device, to the extent that we don't have the 4-hour meandering conversations at the coffee house, or the time that we engage with nature that we might have when we were little kids in our old days, or whatever happened generations ago. Now it's just like go 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 all the time. Pump the
Yeah.
brakes, man. That I might have to title the show Sean McCormick, Pump the Brakes. I love
Pump
it.
the brakes. Yeah.
That's a great takeaway. If you're going to take one pull quote away, people, pump the frickin' brakes.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So that was a great transition to your coaching operation. And I really wanted to focus on that, because if you look on your website, it's one of the most beautiful presentations, and the very careful languaging that you share to acquaint the person with what your coaching services are all about. And the engagement of, getting pretty deep, asking the penetrating questions, challenging the client to really look deeper than the guy's pop off. I love that pop off line. I'm doing it for them. What's their freaking
Yeah.
problem?
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's get further into some of the things you like to do with people to kind of peel the onion. You talked about NLP, which is of great interest to me, and I think we can go into a lot of different directions there.
Yeah, yeah. The what I've found is I don't know. Part of me is sort of averse to frameworks. I think it helps people understand um, important information and follow a plan, and at the same time, what makes a good, effective coach, a life coach, and so I coach people in basically 4 different categories. One is classic personal development, so that's goal setting, mentality, that's neurolinguistic programming. That is the classic. You think of like Tony Robbins style coaching to like make progress in your life. Go do the thing that you want to go do.
Yeah, write your book finally. Quit making excuses. Okay, got it. Yeah,
Yeah.
personal development. Okay.
Right. The second category is biohacking, and the biohacking, as you know, is an important element of so that we are able to perform at a high level. And I use the term biohacking as what goes in you, what goes on you, and what goes around you.
Mm.
So how can you come to terms to control those 3 variables so that you can sleep better, so that you can digest better, so that you can exert better. And most of the podcast is really focused on, the 307 episodes are really kind of focused on that area. And the third area is professional development. You have to have money to do the things that you want to do. And most folks kind of feel stuck with where they're at professionally. And there are many different things that you can do really quickly to help move the needle, whether that's to get more money in the position that you're in, or to advance yourself into a higher position that you're in, or cut bait and go find another career. And then the fourth category is spiritual development. And the way in my approach to spiritual development is non-denominational. So whether you are agnostic, Muslim, Jewish, Christian, whatever your thing is, there is a way to connect deeper to that reality. There is a way, there are inroads, there are things that you can do, whether it be the use of the tarot or through meditation or through psychedelic practices, to actually make some inroads to develop a deeper sense of your spirit, your soul, to connect. You came from somewhere and you're going to go somewhere. Before and after your life, and to come to terms with that fact is something that a lot of people kind of kick down the road. They kick that can and they kick that can and they kick that can, and then they get nervous about it later in life. So yeah,
Then they go, oh shit, what was I ignoring?
yeah, right. It's something that when you can develop a practice around it to deepen your experience, it improves all the different aspects of your life. So those are the four categories that I really work with people in. And my approach is unlike a lot of other life coach and performance coaches, because the lack of a framework. I'm not going to put anybody into okay, this is your protocol. You got to read these books and do this breath and eat this food and do these journaling exercises, because not everybody's there. Not everybody wants to do all of that stuff. So it's really a custom process. Oftentimes it starts with a tool that I call the life positioning system. And so as I say, I don't like frameworks, but here's this one framework. But the life positioning system is an assessment that most of my clients do in the first session or two. And it looks at 8 core categories of your life. And those categories are health, family, money, your environment, spiritual development, romance and intimacy, life purpose, and fun and recreation. So once you have a subjective assessment of those 8 categories of your life, then you can begin to think about, okay, well, which of these areas do I want to nourish? Based on the timing of my life, whether I'm 24 and just jumping into my professional life, or I'm 64 and my kids are grown and I have different consideration sets. That is an excellent tool to sort of show people to themselves. Just hold up a mirror and say, this is where you say that you're at. What would you like to begin working on? From there, it jumps into, a lot of folks, especially now, their habits are totally different than they were a year ago. Because of COVID, we have our sleep habits have changed, our eating habits and our exercise habits, and the way that we interact with our friends and family have changed radically. So what habits are serving you in these categories, and what habits are not serving you in your in those categories? And then it's little by little. I pay really close attention to the language that people use. One thing that everybody should try is count how many times they say need to or should
in an hour or a day.
Right. Like, think about how many times in a day you say to yourself, I really need to go grocery shopping, or I really need to work out, or, oh, I should call my mom. When you use language like that, you're sort of detaching from your agency. When you are saying, oh, I should, then you're not really taking responsibility for that stuff. And so a simple reframe from I should work out today, which sounds like a pain in the ass, and you feel like, oh God, now it's baggage, right? Instead of saying I should work out today, you can reframe that. And this is another, NLP technique, is to reframe that into a statement, which is, it's important for me to work out today. Even that subtle shift, that change in language it gives you agency and responsibility over what you're going to choose to do during that day. And then it becomes not this thing that you are beholden to, because somebody's going to, if you don't do it, you're going to get in trouble, but rather you're reorienting the way that you decide to live your life. So I encourage everybody today, for the rest of the day, do it for a week, and take a little notepad with you. And every time that you say it out loud or into yourself, I need, or I should, just make a little tick mark. Very quickly, within a day or two, you're going to be so aware of your overuse of those terms. You're shooting all over. You're shooting all over yourself all day, and it's not serving you. It's not building you up. It's keeping you down. So that's another example of how I apply these sorts of custom techniques that I've learned over years and years of experimentation, that really sort of break people out of their little box that they put themselves in.
Yeah, I also feel like when you use those terms, it's sort of a way to slough off the responsibility. So I really should write my grandmother a letter. She loves receiving letters in the mailbox. And there goes another day that I didn't write the letter, but at least I care enough to say that I should write her a letter, and therefore I can put it off, detaching from my agency of just doing it, and quit talking about it and bullshitting myself and others. I need to get better about my budget. I spend too much on my credit card. Oh, is that so? Okay, interesting. And how about last month? Oh yeah, I needed to do better last month too. And we go through our entire life telling that story. And I guess, I don't know, protecting our self-esteem or our self-image, because we have all these should statements that would indicate we're a better person, and we know it. All we have to do is say should this, should that, should this.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of a form of like self-virtue signaling, a little bit, at least I've thought about it,
For sure. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's dangerous, and these are really two low-hanging fruit examples of a lot of things that we do just automatically. Bruce Lipton is one of my heroes. I was lucky enough to have him on the podcast, and we talked a lot about the subconscious mind. The fact that 97% of our decisions throughout the day are directed by the subconscious mind. They're these should statements. Well, where's that should coming from? Is it coming from you, or is it coming from what you grew up learning about how to operate in the world that you just sort of absorb when you were in a theta brainwave state from 0 to 7 years old, when you just sort of learned culture, you learned how adults talk to each other rather than being really cognizant of it. And then that stuff, those narratives, those stories, they just keep building and building and building all throughout your life. And so pretty soon you get to a point where you feel like you're not really making any decisions for yourself at all. There's this free will, conversation wrapped into this. Like, do we really have free will? But if your subconscious mind is telling you you're not good enough, or this will never work, or, don't take a risk, you need that job because you need the insurance, and all these things, these narratives, they bog us down. And working with a really skilled life coach that can help you identify those, and then either reframe those or purge those through, some other sorts of practices that I really like.
Listeners have heard me talk about that assertion from Bruce Lipton, and he's done great, respected scientific work. So it's not just some guy's opinion.
Right.
He's looking at cellular energy and the petri dish in the lab that grows mold and stuff because you're talking mean to it and all this crazy stuff. But it was hard for me to grasp that concept that we're 93 to 97% of the time operating from flawed subconscious programming, and maybe I'm reading the book going, yeah, I'm probably about 60 to 63% because I'm way more woke than whoever average is talking about. But the way you just described is a little bit of distinction there. So the actions that you're taking, I'm sure you're purely conscious right now and you're walking up the stairs and you're having a conversation or you're folding laundry or whatever, but they're emanating from subconscious programming, even though you're completely clear and focused on what you're doing right now. But that part, that starts to make more sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, you're choosing to fold the laundry, but the background narrative that's happening while you're folding laundry.
Is
uh,
what 90% the same shit that was going through your mind yesterday and 80% of it negative? Are those stats
right?
right? It's some trippy thing like that.
Yeah, and when I first heard that, yeah, those statistics really blew my mind, and I had to think really critically about it. And in the episode when we talked about it, it's like layers and layers and layers and layers deep. You know, beyond what your free will is allowing you to do, or is giving you the option to do. Underneath all of that, there are these narratives and frameworks that you've built up in your mind. You know, while you're folding your clothes, you know, you may be thinking about, you know, how much you hate doing this, or how much of a
Mm,
burden this is, or you're not folding it correctly, or your clothes aren't very
mm,
nice, right? So it's like these onion layers that go deeper and deeper and deeper, that are that are really clouding how we see ourselves. And that default mode network is real powerful. And if your default mode is safe, and I need to play it, I need to, stay alive, protect, and you're uncomfortable there and you want to move out of that place, then there's things that you can do, and a lot of them are done quietly by yourself, but you just got to have these techniques.
so really, the one of the first objectives I imagine is to get rid of these self-limiting beliefs that we're walking around, largely emanating from childhood programming. So what do we do there, Sean? What's the
Yeah.
what's the way to attack this issue?
Yeah, so this is one of my most favorite neurolinguistic programming techniques that I've ever used, and I honestly I don't remember where I found it. I think that it maybe even have been from like an NLP book, Barnes and Noble, one afternoon, and it's called the STOP method. And the STOP method uses a pattern interrupt, which um, basically short circuits these pathways in the brain, these thought processes in the brain. So this is a way to get rid of a negative emotion forever. And I use this one before I tell you exactly how this works. I'll tell you a story about one of my clients that use this. So he was going through a divorce, and he was in a custody battle with his wife, and he had two boys, and she cheated on him, and she cheated on him with a coworker, and she was really going quickly with this new guy, and she was going to like move in with him. And um, the old version of him, he hated her. I mean, he had good reason to be upset. He for all intents and purposes, he got done dirty. He was so consumed by anger for her that it was consuming him, and it was messing with his sleep. It was messing with his health. It was messing with his relationship with his two boys. And he, through a session that we were having, I said, he's like, I'm just so angry all the time. And I said, um, okay, well, how is that anger working for you? And he's like, I don't fucking care how it's working. It just, I'm fucking mad. And I was like, okay, well, when you let that out, when you express that emotion of anger, your boys see it. When you talk to your mother and you're talking to her
Mm.
like she's a child, they see that. That's their mom. And then that makes you look bad, and that doesn't help. Like that, we have to do something around this anger. We can be pragmatic. I can help you sort of strategize the custody stuff, and getting your life on track, and all that good stuff. We can work on that stuff, but the anger is the first thing we have to deal with. So we did this technique, and it happened over the course of 2 weeks. Again, I'll tell you exactly how it goes. We worked on this one technique, and at the end of 2 weeks, after he had done this stop method like religiously, he was all over it. At the end of the 2 weeks, they met up to do for his ex-wife to pass the kids off for him for the weekend. Dad got the boys on the weekend, and they met up, and she what are you going to do with the boys this weekend? He's like, oh, we're going to go to the zoo. We're going to get ready for a barbecue. It's going to be a great weekend. And she's like, you seem weird. And he's like, okay. She's like, what's wrong with you? Are you stoned? And he's like, no, I'm not stoned. She's like, if you're high, this is totally unacceptable. Like, you are too relaxed. This is fucked up. I'm going to call your mom and I'm going to tell her that you're smoking weed. And he's like, I'm not smoking weed. I'm just not angry. I'm choosing not to be angry anymore. And she's like, what the fuck does that mean? He's like, we can figure out our stuff. I just want to have a great weekend. Cause she was doing the thing. She was trying to get under his skin. And that was the dynamic that they had. And after she realized, after a few minutes of prodding him and poking the bear, she realized that she couldn't get under his skin. And then she softened and she said, well, I hope you guys have a really great weekend. Totally diffused the situation. And he came back. He called me right after. He's like, my boys are in the car. This is going to be a 2-minute conversation. I just want to say thank you. The stop method has helped me like really turn a corner. This is incredible. So here's how this tool works. So what you do, there's 4 steps to the stop method. Step 1 is to go there. Step 1 is to actually feel that emotion of anger. There's different psychotherapists that will agree or disagree on whether or not it's healthy to go into that emotional state. But in this framework, this just really works. So you go there. So for him, it was obvious. It was anger. He was angry. He had good reason to be. So you go there. And then once you can identify that you're actually in that state of consciousness that you want to reprogram, when you want to stop that, once you're there, you're like, oh yeah, I definitely feel it. I'm thinking about her and I'm angry. Then you stand up out of your chair and you say, stop, out loud. So you change your physical state, you change your posture, you stand up, you step forward into it, you say, stop. And then you replace that negative emotion of anger with a more positive emotion. This sounds so simple, but it just works so well. You've interrupted that pattern of anger and then you've replaced it. Now, before you begin the full method, you will have practiced this replacement emotion that you prefer to anger. In his case, it was gratitude. Gratitude, lots of science on gratitude, lots of studies that show people are happier and live longer and healthier. And so he had a couple of different anchors that he was using to attach to that emotional state of gratitude. The fact that my kids are healthy was his number one. My boys are healthy. My marriage didn't work out, but my boys are healthy. That was his gratitude anchor. And then once he could get into that state of gratitude, effectively replaced anger with gratitude, then you have to integrate that somatically by doing some sort of physical motion, some sort of celebratory gesture that signals to your central nervous system that I prefer this better. So for him, this was back when like dabs were cool. So he would, you do the dab. So that was his celebratory, like, some people do fist pumps, some people do burpees, but you signal to your central nervous system, like, I like this better. And then you start again, you sit down, you go into that negative state of emotion. For him was anger. When it's there again, you stand up and say stop, you replace it with gratitude, you do the celebration, that somatic work, and then you sit back down. You do it over and over and over and over and over, 20 times a day. Now, building up to this, you have to practice that positive emotional state. That's really key because you have to pull it up really quickly.
Also, you have to practice without that pressure of the actual meeting with the ex-wife that you're in dispute with.
Right.
You practice in your bedroom before bed or first thing in the morning. Got you.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. You're not confronted with it. It's not, it's not right in front of your face, but you can get yourself into a place of gratitude and feel it somewhere in your body. For him, it was like in his chest. It was like, that's where he felt it. And what happens is if you're really diligent about it and you do it, you do a set of 20 and you do 20 of those reps and you do that like 7 times a day, you're getting a lot. I mean, you're also looking, a little cuckoo because you're talking to yourself and getting up and down out of your chair. So you've got to do it privately, of course. And what happens is after a couple of days, you get to a point where you can't even feel that negative thought. You can't even feel that emotion. It's like, I don't even remember what that feels like. Like it's hard to get into that negative state. And that's when you have to just keep going. You have to try really hard to really get to the bottom of it, to really identify it so that you can rework that narrative, that emotional state. And you do it over and over. By day 6 or 7, it's really tough, and it lengthens the time that you actually do this exercise, because you have to like find where that anger is. You have to seek it out. Like, oh, what is it? I can't remember. Like, oh, I can think of one thing that she said. That doesn't really bug me. Go a little bit deeper, a little bit deeper, a little bit deeper. So you're actually doing this heavy lifting. You're digging into this emotion at its depths. So it's getting deeper and deeper and more wounded until you can get really to the very bottom of it, to get like, okay, I'm angry again, and then stop and do it again. So it was 2 weeks that he had been on the stop method. And that's when he saw his ex-wife and his kids again. And he launched from there. I mean, that one thing, that one exercise totally launched his life in a completely different direction. Like he was happier with himself. So like, though, that's just one really powerful example of a technique that's worked for clients of mine. I've used it on myself, and that I've seen work time and time again.
Oh man, I love it. And I'm thinking that this can apply to anything, uh, maybe something less extreme than a flaming dispute that's a custody battle with kids. I mean, that's pretty high on the scale of gnarly. But what if you feel stressed about your bills in the coming month, and you go into that mode of fear and anxiety? You could work on it in all different directions, or whatever. Maybe it's you're having trouble adhering to your diet and you're feeling like a failure. So you can just plug this stop method into, I guess, any area of life, really.
Yeah, you really can. And the key point is, you know, that the fear and anxiety of not being able to pay bills is keeping you focused, right? That's like the butterflies before a race, right? It's like, oh, I'm feeling this nervousness. That's signaling to me that this is important. I need to really kind of get this thing dialed in.
Mm.
Same thing that when you're sitting down to pay bills, and it's really really challenging for you, but if that fear and anxiety is taking over and is clouding your judgment, then it's no longer serving you. It's not doing its desired effect. And that plan around the bills and the anxiousness around not being able to pay them also has to come with a plan. The plan around how you can better your environment, how you can better your situation, whether it's a side hustle or changing careers or whatever. Like there's life strategy that needs to come along with being pragmatic so that issue doesn't keep coming up. But if you are just totally overwhelmed by this emotional state, and it's tough for you to do anything else other than freak out over and over and over again, then yeah, you can use it just about anywhere.
I like that pairing of the strategy with redirecting to something that's productive. And so that in the case of the spouse that was angry, he's going into a feeling of gratitude. Hey, this is the mom. I'm glad she birthed my boys. We can certainly agree on that if we disagree on everything else. But then you have to plug in a different example, such as the person stressed about the budget can go and do their exercises, such as reviewing their spreadsheet with more scrutiny, or whatever wherever they're falling short. So we really have to zero in and identify what we need to do to get back on track. Same with the failed dieter, can wake up the next day and skip breakfast, and then they're kind of back on track, and they have a miniature success and something they can hold their hat on.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. You can make adjustments. You can make improvements. And if the emotions are getting in the way, you can use it for anything. But then it has to be followed up by some sort of action that actually corrects course. Yeah.
So you're giving permission and you're saying it's okay that these emotions are riling me up because that indicates that it's important to me and that I want to change, rather than flagellating myself from the outset because I'm not perfect and I have a negative emotion.
Yeah, I mean, you feel those feelings, like, it's honor them, recognize
Mm.
them, acknowledge them, thank them for being there. And then if there's a point of diminishing returns with those emotions and they're no longer serving you or helping you in any way, but freaking you out and sending you into a, a sympathetic response and, keeping you up at night, then take care of that and then find some action plan to correct course.
So what happens when you recommend this to your client? You want them to do it several times a day for a week, and we come back with our coaching call a week later, and sorry, Sean, I kind of blew it off. I got really busy, and I'm still angry, and I can't let it go. What's the intervention at that point when the technology is there and it's not being used?
Yeah, great question. There, there has to be some reason why this is not bubbled up to number one top priority. Either you're not actually committed to change because a part of you actually is still kind of connected to that emotion. You kind
Mm,
of like
you
feeling
get a
angry.
payoff of some kind.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
feel vindicated when I feel anger for her, or
I get
I
to be right.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Well, she's a bitch. So, I mean, what are you going to do? Or, when it comes to nutrition, you're doing it around your lifestyle, and it didn't make its way to top priority. Um, there has to be some reason why. If you say that this is important to you, if you say that this is really getting in your way of thinking clearly and making strong actions towards the life that you want to create for yourself, then it will get done. If it's of enough importance to you, then it will get done. Now, if it doesn't get done, it's possible that you just don't have the energy to do it. It's
Mm.
possible that you are gassed out and you've been gassed out because you haven't been sleeping for the last 2 or 3 weeks. Well, then we got to figure that out. It's possible that you're just not very good at structuring the time of your day. And if you can't prioritize, 4-minute chunks of doing this exercise to overcome this debilitating emotional state you don't want, well, then we need to look at the way that you strategize your day. We need to look at we need to give you a prioritization tool, or, this is so beautiful because this this does kind of play into a bunch of different stuff that I work on people with. If you don't have a plan of action every day, if you don't have things on the to-do list, you're going to be guessing. You're going to be flying blind just about every day. So we've all got meetings and we've all got, phone calls we have to make, and, we've got to show up and flip the laptop up and have a conversation with one or more people. We've got to do that. But if you are not sure what to do when that stuff's over and you're just like, guess I'll focus on, oftentimes you just pick the simplest, easiest, most convenient thing.
Mm.
You gravitate towards the things that you're familiar with, the things that are easy, that can be done quickly. Oftentimes that's email. Oftentimes that's social media.
Uh-oh,
So
that's me raising my hand, man. The email
yeah,
inbox is always awaiting. Yeah.
yeah. So let me ask you this: do you have like an email strategy?
Not a good one.
Okay.
I certainly have I embrace the suggestion to batch your responses and get your brain in that mode, your reactive mode, for an hour, and then depart and go into highest cognitive function, peak core responsibilities, and highest expression of my talents. And it seems to leak out regularly. And I talk about this a lot of time on the podcast because, here's my show on jumping into the cold freezer or freezing Lake Tahoe in the winter. And I can bet you I'm the only guy on the 72-mile shores of the lake. I'm the only guy swimming in it when it's 42 degrees. So what a badass, level 10 badass to go swimming in Lake Tahoe. I usually go to the tourist beach and people are pointing at me and taking pictures like, dude, that's pretty hardcore. I'm like, yeah, thanks. I enjoy it. I'm patting myself on the back. And so I'm begging someday, wishing that will translate over to being the most badass, disciplined email inbox person on the planet. And I haven't made that strong connection yet.
uh,
So this is where I sit, man. That's your answer.
Oh man, thank you for speaking that truth out. That's that to our earlier
Oh, it's
conversation.
true. I'm the only guy in that lake when it's 42. There's no freaking way someone's swimming.
So email batching is always strongly suggested. Another technique specifically for email, because what email signifies is everybody else's shit.
Mm,
It's not my shit. It's everybody else's, and everybody else can insert themselves into your day at any given time by sending you an asinine email that wasn't necessary. And because you like to please people, because I like to please people, this is something I've had to do a lot of work on. I like to please people. I like to get back to them really quickly. Like within 12 hours is kind of where I like to stay. And what I've found is this technique where, yes, I do email batch. And also I use this for, and this is for highly um, people who are highly functional, who get a lot of things done, is when you're email batching, if there are emails in your email box that you can reply to right away, reply to them right away. Low hanging fruit. If it's a
mm,
one sentence reply, just get it done. Just get it off your plate. Yep, that sounds good.
mhm,
Send me a calendar invite. Boom, that's done. You can do 20 of those in a minute.
mhm.
For those other emails that either need more thoughtful consideration and response, or you just don't know yet, or they need to be delegated for other people's input, I'll open it, I'll read it, and then I'll leave it as unread. So I'll leave it as unread, so I know that I've got to go back to that email, like either in 10 more minutes or in the second email batch portion of the day. So I'll go back to it. For things that are not passing my sort of this is important meter, and there's a number of those things that I want to respond. I'd like to respond, and um, I don't want to spend a bunch of time on it. Oftentimes, I'll just email back and say, "Hey, just wanted you to know that I saw this email. I appreciate it, and if you
Mm.
don't hear back from me in 3 days, email me again to remind me."
Oh,
So you're kind of giving that back to them.
yeah.
Right? It's not on you anymore. You've acknowledged you got the email. You don't want to leave it unread. You want to honor that with a quick response to acknowledge it. Then you say, "Hey, this needs some additional thought from me. I need an additional time. Get back to me in 3 days. If I don't reply, just send me another email." Because then that way, the people who are if it's not that important, they won't email back. If it
Mm.
is that important, then they will email back. And oftentimes, their second email is shorter and more to the point. So it wastes less of your time, burns less of your important calories coming out of your brain. So then you can be faster. So then this 4 paragraph email that you skimmed and said, "Hey, this is cool. Get back to me in 3 days if I don't email back." The next email is now 3 sentences with an ask, and I can say, "Okay, yes or no." And then I reply back. So for me, that's really worked, and it's also worked for a lot of high level clients, people who are super productive and on top of their stuff. So I don't know, hopefully that helps. But those sorts of distractions will always be there. They will always come into our lives, and if that's keeping you from moving forward in your life, the little minutia of the day that will always be there, little push notifications and emails and stuff like that, is to get as fast with those as possible, so that you can, like you said, focus on the stuff that you're really good at and the stuff that you love to do.
I love it. Yeah. I think I'm also acknowledging that dopamine hit that comes from uh, launching into the inbox and getting all this fresh, variable stimulus to the brain. And it's more exciting than having to grind to finish another chapter of a book. And so, the high cognitive demand tasks tend to get pushed aside, even though they should be the first priority first thing in the morning when we're the most
Right.
fresh. So I think more acknowledgement, and then taking those baby steps. And I think that's what's good about your advice is like, uh, the 60-second rule, I guess. If you can answer or take care of something around the home, like sort out the junk mail from the regular mail, you do that right away every time, because it only takes a minute. And then opening the mail and considering it is something that you set aside to do when you have the more time and energy to devote. So
Yeah.
good stuff, man. Okay, I'm on it. I'm making a
Good.
commitment to Sean and all listeners that we're gonna up the priority here.
Nice. Good.
So I'm gonna let you go, and you've got probably people lining up for your coaching services, and you can plug those at the end. But I am also curious, since you are really big into that so-called biohacking space and the physical optimization in the environment. You said in around you, on you, in you, all those kind of things. Maybe you can share some of your favorites that have really been fun and exciting and worked well for you.
Yeah. Yeah. So, oh man, there's so many that I love. For me, the two most useful biohacking tools that I've ever come across are blue blocking glasses that I wear every single night and oftentimes during the day. Just a short one on that. I mean, does your audience know much about blue blocking glasses? Am I going to be beating a dead horse if I explain it?
I don't think we've had dedicated shows to it, and I think it's definitely out there, and people are curious and participating at various levels of commitment. So I'd love to know more. Yeah.
Yeah. So the long and short of it is when you stay up at night after the sun has gone down and you're looking at screens, the blue light that's coming from these screens, blue and green, is signaling through your eyes that it's daytime. So the sun has gone down and your circadian rhythm should be beginning to wind down, lowering the lights in your house. This is counter to what most people think and what we've been told. I don't have any LED lights in my house anymore. I switched all back to incandescent because I'm sensitive to that flicker that comes from LED lights.
Right. I don't think that's widely known. So just briefly,
Yeah.
the LED, which is taking over the lighting industry, I guess, because they're cheaper, they last longer, whatever. But at a microscopic, imperceptible level, they're flickering like crazy. And
Yeah.
your brain knows, even if you can't identify it from staring at it, right?
Right, right. So that feeling that you get when you walk into like an office building or a dentist office and it's those super bright, like white lights that are, 9 feet above your head, those are terrible for you. They're terrible for your central nervous system. They're terrible for your eyes. There's science that now shows that you have light receptors on your skin. So if you're wearing a t-shirt in your house at night and you have your lights on and they're LEDs, a couple of years ago, they rolled back the LED requirements. So now you can actually have incandescent in your house. They are a little bit more money. They are a little less energy efficient. And I like to think that, that my lifestyle is doing some other things to help benefit the planet in other ways, chickens in a garden and composting and recycling and all that
Right.
stuff. But
Positive point score.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm trying, man. I'm
Yeah.
trying. So you're at nighttime when you're surrounded by LED lights that are literally flickering. They flicker on and off at a really high pace that you can't even see. Your brain notices that, and different people have different sensitivities to that. But we've all felt that feeling where you walk into an office building and the lighting is terrible and it just feels like it's draining your soul. That's bad for you. That's bad for you. Combined with light exposure after dark. For me, I'm in Seattle, so sunset now is like 5 o'clock. So it's still fairly early. It's going to get up to like 9 or so in the summertime. But for a while, it was like 4:30. 4:30 sundown. So if you're watching TV or screens or laptops or your phones, and even if you use the filter on there, the little night filter that makes it a little bit more yellow, it's still doing the same thing. That's not helping at all. There's studies that show that doesn't actually help whatsoever. Blue blocking glasses. My favorite are blue blocks. They're stylish. They're really high quality. And when you wear those, it's blocking out that blue light that's coming into your brain. And so therefore your brain is able to start creating melatonin later. endogenous melatonin that you need to get into phase 2 and phase 3 sleep, into REM sleep. So when you wear your blue blocking glasses at night, you can still look at screens if you wish, and you're not suppressing that melatonin production. And you are beginning to establish a circadian rhythm that is more appropriate to the area of geography that you live. So there are two types really. There's like the exogenous circadian rhythm, and then there's an endogenous. So we all have different sleep cycles and types and stuff like that. So for me, blue blocking glasses have been an absolute game changer. Um, the second, my second most favorite is the X3 bar.
Wow.
I realized a long time ago, and I've done, I've got grounding mats and plasma generators and biosignatures, which is this really incredible energy purification system that for your household and for your body. If you want to have a really great episode about healing through shape, Daria Karim, Karim from Biosignatures. She's an amazing, brilliant woman. Her and her father have developed this technology. But for me, I want to work out. I want to gain muscle in the shortest amount of time possible. And I realized that X3 and 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight was like the thing I was missing to really change my physique. I was a college athlete, college scholarship soccer player, and I played
Wow.
in an Olympic development program growing up, and I've played in leagues and done jujitsu since then. And I've never had the body that I thought I could really have. And X3, and literally in 10 minutes a day, has just totally changed my physique for the better. So those are my top two. There are a lot of environmental factors to consider. If you're not turning off your Wi-Fi when you go to sleep at night, start doing that. You will be amazed how your sleep improves, how the quality and the depth of your sleep improves if you turn off your Wi-Fi when you go to sleep at night, or just have it on a lamp timer if you want. But these are all things that are part of things you can control that will help you be your best, so that you can be at a baseline to make bigger decisions about the life that you want to lead and the relationships that you want to nourish and the vision that you have for your life. So you got to kind of take care of the physical stuff, and so that you can continue to grow beyond it.
Love it, man. Those are two distinct and, random biohacks, but fantastic. And, you know, I feel the same about the variable resistance training that's promoted by Dr. Jaquish and the X3 bar. And of course, you can also do any resistance tubing, or like I use stretch cords. I've used them for 20 years, the stuff the swimmers use. But, particularly the X3 allowing you to get this total body workout in such a short time. It's hard for people to imagine. And, you hear a lot of scoffing and detractors saying, oh, 10 minutes a day, come on, that's ridiculous. But the only critique I have of it is that I actually was dabbling in it a little bit too much, because I
Yeah.
love my micro workouts, and I really fried my muscles because the workout is so tremendous and it stimulates the muscle to a level far beyond a standard weight training where you're pushing around heavy weights and constrained by your weakest point of force production with the heavy weight. But oh yeah, so
Yeah.
this guy is on the ball, people.
I've been tweaking with that a little bit. I don't know if do you experiment at all with blood flow restriction?
No, but I've heard about it and it sounds pretty interesting. This is
So
describe a little bit what that is.
yeah, so blood flow restriction training is restricting blood flow to your limbs, because then it increases white blood cells. It makes your body work harder, so you get to fatigue faster, and it doesn't occlude the blood. It's not like a blood pressure cuff where it stops blood flow. It's not like a strap that has no give, where it's like cutting off blood flow, but it restricts it to a large extent. And Dr. Jim Stray Gunderson, I've had him on the podcast. He's the creator of Be Strong bands, which is based on what I can tell, the highest quality blood flow restriction. But you basically put a cuff just underneath your shoulder, above your bicep on both arms, and then you put cuffs at the highest point, on your upper thighs, just below the butt, and you pump them up until it's tight. It's pretty tight. And then you just go about your workout. Now, there's great studies around the original is called Katsu. Katsu is kind of the origin of BFR. And they did it with Japanese populations. It started with Japanese bodybuilders, and they started experimenting with elderly populations. And the elderly can get really good exercise, like really good deep exercise with very little time and very little exertion, because when you are doing light workouts with these bands on, you're getting the benefits of a longer term, high intensity training session. And the science is amazing. So to your point with the X3, I'll do I'll put the BFR cuffs on, but then I'll do 3 sets of 30 with the white band or the light gray band. So I won't go to the variable resistance. I won't do the full exertion at that full range, middle range, and mini range. So I'll do 3 sets of 30, and I find that it does a little bit of a different thing and works well too.
Optimal performance, people. Thank you so much, Sean McCormick. Definitely go check out his podcast and tell us where we can learn more about your coaching services beyond listening to Optimal Performance Podcast.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. I just want to say thank you, Brad. I really like your style, man. I like your enthusiasm. I like your attitude to the work that you do. Your podcast is wonderful. Your guests are great. I'm not just saying that because I'm a guest now, but I like.
It's
I'm
the
really
greatest lineup of guests we've ever seen. Yeah.
Yeah, it just keeps getting better and better. Yeah, you can find me. It's the Optimal Performance Podcast, and then you can find my coaching site is my name. It's Sean McCormick, SEAN McCormick.com, SeanMcCormick.com. And then on Instagram, it's real Sean McCormick, and I'm really active there. That's where I'm the most active. And I love talking with people. So if anybody has feedback or questions or wants to call BS on anything I've said, let me know.
Bring it on.
Bring it on.
Thanks everybody for listening. Great show.